She steps out of the car, her red hair catching the glow of the city lights, and in that single moment, the world fell in love. Julia Roberts as Vivian, Richard Gere as Edward, and a love story that felt larger than life. It wasn't just a movie, it was magic, the kind of magic that lingers in your heart long after the credits fade. Asterisk, more than 30 years have passed since Pretty Woman first appeared on the big screen. But its spirit still shines as if no time has gone by. Back in 1990, audiences were introduced to a modern fairy tale that dared to mix charm, humor, and romance in a way that felt fresh and unforgettable. Julia Roberts, a young actress with a smile that could light up the darkest night, became a star overnight. Her laughter, her vulnerability, and her boldness gave Vivian life beyond the script. On the other side was Richard Gere, already a polished actor, bringing to Edward a mix of power, mystery, and surprising warmth. Together, they were not just characters, they were the dream couple that people wanted to believe in. The film was more than a love story. It was a cultural event. Every detail became iconic. The shopping trip on Rodeo Drive, the piano scene in the hotel, the unforgettable balcony rescue with Edward climbing to meet Vivian in true knightly fashion. These scenes played like chapters from a storybook, one that felt familiar, yet daringly new. Audiences didn't just watch Vivian's transformation. They lived it with her. From the first meeting on Hollywood Boulevard to the final embrace, the journey touched on something universal. The idea that love can break barriers, heal wounds, and make us believe in second chances. When Roxette's "It Must Have Been Love" played during the film, the song didn't just serve as background music, it became the beating heart of the story. The lyrics spoke to longing, to heartbreak, and to the fragile beauty of love itself. The melody wrapped around the film's most tender moments, and even today, hearing it pulls us right back to that hotel room, that bittersweet goodbye, and that dream of what love could be. For many fans, the song and the movie became inseparable. Two parts of the same memory. The magic of Pretty Woman was also in how it spoke to real people. Vivian was not a typical fairy tale princess. She came from struggle, from a life most would not dare to romanticize, yet she carried hope inside. Her, Edward, wealthy and distant, had walls built high around his heart, but through Vivian, those walls began to crumble. Their love was never about perfection. It was about change, growth, and the courage to see someone for who they truly are. That's why audiences connected. It wasn't just a Cinderella story. It was a story about finding love where the world least expected it. The legacy of this film continues to shine because it gave us characters who felt alive, music that carried emotion, and a story that mixed fantasy with reality in just the right measure. To this day, people still quote the lines, still hum the songs, still dream of that limousine pulling up with Edward waiting inside. The movie proved that romance on screen could be both grand and deeply human. It made us laugh, it made us cry, and most of all, it made us believe. That is why Pretty Woman remains timeless. It isn't simply about Julia Roberts and Richard Gere. It's about what they created together, an unforgettable moment in cinema that became part of our lives. Their chemistry was not scripted, it was felt, and that feeling has lasted more than 3 decades. Every time the film is played, every time the music starts, the magic returns, reminding us that some stories never fade and some loves are meant to live forever. Asterisk, what if the story never really ended? What if the closing shot of Edward climbing that fire escape with flowers in his hand was not the final chapter, but only the beginning of another journey? For more than 3 decades, fans have carried that question quietly in their hearts. The world has changed since 1990. Cities have grown taller, love has become faster, and fairy tales are harder to find. But somewhere in the dreamscape of imagination, Vivian and Edward still walk side by side, their story unfolding in ways the screen never showed us. Picture this, a city's skyline at dusk, lights glowing in windows like tiny sparks of possibility. A woman walks alone, her silhouette familiar, though the years have softened her steps. Beside her, a man whose once sharp confidence has matured into calm strength. They don't need to speak for us to know who they are. We know the way he turns his head toward her, the way she glances up at him with that same radiant smile. The question isn't whether they stayed together, it's how their love carried them through a world that doesn't always make room for. Fairy tales fans often imagine what a continuation would look like. Would Vivian still hold on to that free spirit, that joy for life that first caught Edward's guarded heart? Would Edward, once a man defined by deals and numbers, now see the world with softer eyes because of her? In this dream of a sequel, their story becomes a mirror for our own lives. Love, after all, is not just about beginnings, it is about endurance. It's about facing storms and still choosing each other when the sky clears. In this vision of Pretty Woman 2, the charm is not in grand gestures, but in the quiet moments that speak volumes. A hand reaching across a table, a look exchanged in a crowded room. A memory of that first wild, unpredictable week that changed everything. Time may have added years to their faces, but it cannot erase the bond they built. That bond tested by life's trials becomes stronger because it is real. Not a dream wrapped in Hollywood lights. The beauty of imagining their reunion lies in how it reflects the hope inside us all. The world often tells us that love fades, that passion belongs only to youth, that stories end when the screen goes black. But Vivian and Edward remind us of something different, that love can grow deeper with age, that a story can continue to surprise us, and that fairy tales do not have to end when the book closes. They can live on in the choices we make every day, in the courage to hold on, in the strength to forgive, in the magic of believing that happily ever after is not a finish line, but a journey. So when fans dream of Julia Roberts and Richard Gere stepping into these roles again, it is not simply nostalgia. It is a desire to see that spark return, to be reminded once more of what it feels like to believe in love against the odds. The sequel may never be filmed, but in the hearts of millions, the story is already alive. The reunion plays out in whispers of memory, in the way Roxette's song drifts through the air like a callback to something we refuse to forget. It must have been love. Yes, but it must also still be love, carried forward, waiting to be told again. Asterisk, the city has changed, but love still walks its streets. In the imagined sequel, Vivian and Edward are not the same people we met years ago. Life has left its marks, both beautiful and heavy, but those marks only tell us how far they have traveled together. Imagine the camera moving through a busy Los Angeles street, the noise of traffic blending with the rhythm of footsteps. Among the crowd, we see two figures older now, but still carrying that spark. Vivian's laughter still rises above the noise, warm and unshaken, and Edward's eyes still soften when he looks at her. This is not the beginning of their love, is the continuation of it, deeper, richer, and more human. In this vision, Vivian has become more than just the girl who once dreamed of a different life. She has carved her own place in the world, using the courage that Edward once admired in her. She is independent, strong, and yet still carries that wild joy that made her unforgettable. Edward, no longer the man who only measured life in numbers, in business deals, has learned that the greatest investment he ever made was not in his empire, but in the woman who taught him how to love. Together, they face the challenges of a world that is far less forgiving now: business pressures, personal doubts, and the weight of expectations. But their bond proves that love is not a fleeting spark. It is a fire that learns how to survive. Storms picture a symbolic scene. A jewelry box once closed, now opening again. Not to sell diamonds, but to reveal a simple, timeless Tokena reminder that their story was never about riches, but about finding something priceless. Another moment shows them walking through Rodeo Drive, the same place where Vivian once faced rejection, but now she walks with confidence. It's no longer needing validation because she has already proven her worth to herself. The camera lingers on her smile as Edward watches, knowing that this transformation was always hers, not his gift to her. The heart of this imagined sequel is not the grand gestures. It is the quiet power of two people who chose to stay. The sequel is not about whether Edward rescues Vivian again. It is about how they rescue each other every single day. Their love becomes a partnership, a balance, where the lines between fairy tale and reality blur into something far more inspiring. They argue, they laugh, they forgive, and they grow, because that is what real love looks like. And just when the story feels grounded, The magic returns in small, unforgettable ways. A familiar song plays on the radio. It must have been loved for a moment. Time folds back on itself. Kiss. Edward glances at Vivian, and she knows what he is thinking without a word. That same song that once carried the ache of goodbye now carries the strength of everything they've built together. What was once a song of loss becomes a song of survival. Proof that their story was never just about a moment, but about a lifetime. The beauty of Pretty Woman 2 lies in how it redefines the idea of happily ever after. The screen fades to twilight. City lights shimmer like scattered diamonds across the skyline, the same city where their story began all those years ago. But now, the streets tell a different tale. They are not just the backdrop for a fairy tale. They are the living proof that time cannot erase the beauty of love that has endured. In the imagined Pretty Woman 2, there is no need for a carriage or a castle, because the magic has always been in the people themselves. Vivian and Edward do not walk as characters trapped in the past. They move like echoes that still breathe in the present, reminding us of the love that made us believe when we were younger and continues to move us even now. And then, almost like a whisper, a familiar sound begins. The opening chords of it must have been love spill softly into the night air. The song carries with it not only the memory of the first story, but the weight of everything that came after. Once, it was the song of goodbye, a melody of longing and loss. But in this new vision, the song transforms. It becomes the anthem of survival, of love that refused to vanish, of hearts that still beat for one another despite the years, the storms, and the silence in between. As the music builds, the faceless visuals rise with its silhouettes of hands entwined, shadows leaning into each other, the city skyline dissolving into a soft glow of dawn. We see flashes of the past, the dress, the limousine, the fire escape. But instead of holding on to them as old photographs, the story lets them dissolve into something greater, the symbol of a love that never belonged only to the screen. Vivian's laughter echoes faintly. Edward's quiet voice lingers like an unfinished sentence, and together they create a harmony that feels eternal. These are not just characters. They are reflections of us. They are the part of us that still dares to hope, to fall in love, to believe that second chances are real. The final moments unfold like a dream. The jewelry box that once snapped shut now rests open, not to close again, but to remain as a promise. The red roses that once marked romance now float into the night sky, carried by the wind as if to remind us that love cannot be contained. And as the camera rises above the city, the music swells, lifting the story with it. The lyrics cut through the silence. It must have been love. But it's not over now. And in that moment the audience understands. The film never truly ended. Because real love stories don't end. They live on in the way we remember them, in the way we hum a song without realizing, in the way a single smile from Julia Roberts and a single glance from Richard Gere can still make us believe in something bigger than ourselves. The narration closes gently, almost like a secret shared between friends. Julia Roberts. Richard Gere. Pretty Woman. A story we never stopped carrying in our hearts. A love that proved fairy tales are not just for the young, they are for anyone who still believes in the power of magic. The music reaches its final note, lingering in the air like the last breath of a dream. The screen fades to black, and one final line appears, asterisk long after the credits roll. After the lights of the cinema have dimmed and the music has faded into silence, something still lingers. Pretty Woman was never only a film. It became part of the way people dreamed about love. It lived in conversations between friends, in the way someone hummed "It Must Have Been Love" on a rainy day, in the quiet hope that maybe, just maybe, life could surprise us the way it surprised Vivian and Edward. And now, in this imagined continuation, the afterglow is stronger than ever. Their story may exist only in the space between memory and imagination, but isn't that where the most powerful stories always live? Think of a world without them. No laughter spilling out of a Beverly Hills boutique, no limousine waiting at the curb, no daring rescue on a fire escape. The streets would feel colder, the songs would lose their meaning, and the dream of a love that crosses boundaries would feel dimmer. Vivian and Edward filled that space with warmth, teaching us that romance is not about perfection, it is about courage. The courage to step outside your world, the courage to risk rejection, and the courage to believe in someone when no one else does. That lesson did not vanish in 1990. It has stayed with us, whispered in every retelling, alive in every memory. In this imagined Pretty Woman 2, we discover that true stories never need a camera to keep going. They live in us, reshaped by our own experiences, retold every time we fall in love, every time we lose it, and every time we dare to begin again. Vivian and Edward are not only characters, they are symbols of the parts of ourselves that want to be seen, loved and valued for who we really are. That is why fans still gather, decades later, to watch the film with fresh tears in their eyes. Because it isn't only about Julia Roberts and Richard Gere. It is about us, reflected back through their smiles and their silences. And then, as the imagined sequel fades into its final moments, you see something rare. Not a grand kiss or a sweeping rescue, but a quiet stillness. Vivian and Edward sitting side by side, watching the sun rise over the city. They don't speak because they don't need to. The silence says it all, that love does not always need fireworks to endure. Sometimes it survives in the everyday, in the small gestures, in the comfort of knowing that you are not alone. That is the true afterglow of their story, and it is what makes the idea of Pretty Woman to feel so real. Even if it never reaches the screen, the camera rises one last time. Higher and higher, leaving the city below and carrying the audience into the vast sky painted in shades of gold and violet. The faint notes of it must have been love echo one last time, softer now, like a memory drifting away. And as the music fades, one final whisper of narration remains. Stories end on screen, but love never ends. Some tales are not written to finish. They are written to live on inside us. Pretty Woman is one of them. It was love then, it is love now, and it will always be love. The screen turns black. No words, no images, only the echo of silence, the kind that feels full instead of empty. As if the story has taken root in the heart and chosen to stay there forever. Asterisk. Stories like Pretty Woman don't just live inside theaters or television. Screens. They escape into our lives, shaping the way we look at love, the way we imagine possibility, the way we dare to hope when reality feels too heavy. Vivian and Edward are not just two characters played by Julia Roberts and Richard Gere, are pieces of us, woven into our own journeys. That is why, even after decades, their story refuses to fade. It isn't only about what happened on screen, it's about how we carried it with us, replaying those moments in our minds, reimagining them in our hearts, whispering them into the stories we tell about ourselves. Think of the way generations have discovered the film, parents showing it to their children, friends recommending it to one another, lovers sitting side by side as the credits roll. Each new viewer finds something different. Some see the fairy tale, the glamour, the magic of transformation. Others see the courage of two people who chose each other against all odds. Some hear the music and feel nostalgia wash over them, remembering their own first loves, their own risks, their own bittersweet goodbyes. That is the beauty of a story that transcends its time. It becomes a mirror for whoever is watching. Imagine, and what Pretty Woman to really means. It may never be a film with lights, cameras, and opening weekends, but in the quiet corners of imagination, it already exists. Every time someone wonders what became of Vivian and Edward, the sequel is born again. Every time someone hums, it must have been love. The story breathes once more. Every time someone chooses to love boldly, even when the world tells them not. 2. The legacy continues. The real sequel doesn't belong to Hollywood. It belongs to us. Picture a faceless montage. Couples walking hand in hand across city bridges. Strangers smiling at each other on crowded trains. Someone wiping away tears while watching the original film late at night. These aren't Vivian and Edward, yet they are. Because their story has multiplied into countless others. It has leaped from fiction into reality, reminding us that love can happen anywhere, to anyone, at any time. It doesn't need to follow rules. It doesn't need to ask permission. It only needs two people willing to take a chance, just as they once did. The greatest gift of Pretty Woman is not the film itself, but the truth it left behind. Love is not always neat, it is not always easy, but when it arrives, it transforms everything. That truth still echoes today, stronger than ever, because audiences have carried it forward. The film gave us the spark, but we keep the flame alive. We are the sequel. Every time we choose love over fear, every time we believe in someone the world has overlooked, every time we climb our own fire escapes, metaphorical or real, to reach for the person we cannot live without, as the imagined. Pretty Woman 2 drifts into silence. We realize that its true stage is not the movie theater, it is life itself. It plays out in the way we love, in the way we forgive, in the way we hope. Julia Roberts and Richard Gere gave us a story, but we turned it into something larger. It became a language of the heart, a reminder that fairy tales do not end when the credits roll. They continue. Every time someone believes in them. The camera would fade out here, not on Vivian or Edward, but on us, on the audience, on the countless hearts that kept their love alive all these years. And over it all, the song would whisper again, not as a farewell this time, but as a promise. It must have been love, and it still is.